Nothing. Okay.
Hey, Tammy, were you able to pull up the PowerPoint? We have.
I am praised. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 21st Economic Growth and Development Committee. I'm happy to have the opportunity to chair this. Thank you to Supervisor Cressida for being willing to take the chair.
Thank you for offering.
So moving forward, motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting. Supervisor. Anyone, do we have a second for the minutes? Okay. Oh. I second it? Sure. Okay, here we go. Any changes, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to privilege of the floor. Any comments for the committee this morning? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the workforce. Well, Liza,
Good
I'm gonna turn
morning.
this over to you.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have one agenda item. The second one we have withdrawn. We are going to revisit that. And so my only resolution request this morning is for permission to co-apply for a DEC grant with Water Genome. Those of you who were on this committee before may recall that we did a workforce training program with Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union and people with criminal records learning how to build water filtration systems. And with this grant application, we're hoping to expand that to youth on probation age 17 to 24. Still working with Water Genome for the clean water filtration devices and still working with Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union. And although certainly government is not a nonprofit, we checked with DEC and they said we could be a grant administrator for this grant if we were awarded.
Very good. Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Cressida. Second by Supervisor Diamond. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
You know what a green job is?
Yeah, I feel like it's very broad, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of green jobs yet here. We do have some solar jobs, but for these particular water filtration devices that these training participants will be learning how to build, those are transferable skills that they could use when there is an environmental disaster and we don't have clean water for a community. So we're hoping that the skills that they gain will help them gain some knowledge around environmental green jobs, but also just transferable skills they could use at any other job. But in terms of defining and identifying all of the green jobs in our area, it's evolving, but a little bit slower here in our community. But anything related to solar, wind, power, land conservancy, any of those could be identified as green jobs. And certainly if Ethan wants to chime in on anything else, I'm sure there's other grants.
Yeah, there's a broad definition, but
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things we looked at too were like home weatherization, is a green job, you know, energy efficiency, and that's got stuff. I mean, it's pretty wide.
Yeah. Good question.
Any other questions? Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Chairman. So what's a solar? Yeah. Because solar, you have usually a part-time person maintenance. That's it. I mean, you know, I've seen job applications say 5 people and stuff. Well, that's not accurate. So you gotta build the solar.
Mhm.
Then after that, it's strictly a maintenance type of situation. Am I correct?
Yeah, there are maintenance jobs, but there's also some technical skills that you have to be able to have, mechanical skills that not just used in green jobs, but any jobs. So, and we don't see a lot of job openings here for like Apex Solar or any of those other companies. It's growing, but not that fast. But we know that in the future, there's going to be more jobs as we're taking care with all kinds of green jobs,
Well,
like
yeah,
the whole,
okay, those
yeah.
are Solar, that's, yeah. The jobs related to solar, because you don't need anybody other than somebody that once in a while tweak and at the mechanic end of it.
And we're not focused heavily on solar jobs right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this it's a $250,000 grant from the state.
Yes,
And there's any matching on us, or is
No.
this strictly 100% grant?
100% grant, but we will leverage our other resources we have to support the program, just like we did with the pilot we did in November.
Can you explain that a little
Yeah.
more to me?
So we worked with the sheriff's department and local shelters, people are in recovery, people who had criminal records maybe from 10, 20 years ago, but still face barriers with getting employment. It is the hardest population for us to employ. And so we recruited the right people for this job training program. Working with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union, they gave us the space for free to hold the training. And it was both in the shop room as well as in the classroom. The participants, there were 5 of them, learned job readiness skills, but also the technical skills around plumbing, electrical, mechanical, et cetera, for the water filtration systems. And then with Water Genome, with those devices, the 5 devices that were built, they're available for communities in need, or at a resiliency center, or community center, if somebody may need clean water. And Water Genome, they're the experts on this. We're really helping with screening candidates, the job readiness, because we help them with the resume development, job applications, connecting them with employers afterwards, who just need additional employees, but then these job seekers need additional help to get into the workforce.
Any other questions? Supervisor Cressida?
So if they're gonna be working with plumbers and pipe fitters, there's so many trades that are lacking employees, you know, there's such a demand for it right now. You wanna see all that funding go into electricians and plumbers and carpenters and whatnot. So if they take a green job and the component of it is just plumbing or electrical, does that still qualify for it? It's if they went to work for Apex or and that-
Absolutely.
Okay, so they'll learn those trades along the way also.
Absolutely. And so grateful for the partnership with 773, the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union, because the participants are able to hear about those training opportunities that they provide as well. Their classes are filled every night, and we love that.
Yeah.
So these participants will have those opportunities as well. It's really about the skill development. It's not necessarily about, okay, which green job are they going to go into? We want them into a job, period.
Yep.
But this specific grant is looking at 17 to age 24, and we have young people on probation, worked with probation department, then they're really interested in being a partner in this too, because a job is the best way to keep people out of trouble. And it is it's the number one preventer of recidivism, is making sure people have a good job. So if we have youth on probation, 17 to 24, that then get connected with local mentors, jobs, and additional skills, we are saving money and resources, and also in helping mental health and purpose for our young people in crisis in our community.
It's a good program, but they gotta show up for work.
Yeah.
We got a few.
Yeah. The guys we had in November showed up on time,
Oh,
actually
good.
early every morning.
Very good. That's a great program.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the approval of this resolution. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Resolution B is removed from the agenda today. So Liza, information and discussion review on general workforce updates.
Yeah, in February's committee meeting here, I'd like to do a broader presentation, especially since we have new committee members, just about our workforce development funding, our program services, but also what our data looked like from 2025. I think that would be really helpful. So just know I'm going to come back and give you more information next month, wrapping up our 2025 for you. Our current unemployment rate from November is still what we have is 4.1, and it was 3.5 a year ago. We hope to have a December number at the end of this week. I've mentioned several times that unemployment rate does go up a little bit in the winter, so this is nothing that we're concerned about. We have a lot of seasonal workers in our community. But we are really busy in our career center. It is busy every day. And it's not necessarily because of the SNAP work requirements yet, because those go into effect in March. but we're just seeing a lot of people, and it's not just people looking for a job, but maybe some training or thinking about a career change. I did want to update the committee that with AngioDynamics laying off around 50 people, I was able to join Department of Labor at the January 8th meeting at Angio in Queensbury to meet with all of those employees. And just so you know, when any business is closing or laying off people of 50 or more, New York State Department of Labor Rapid Response kicks in to provide those transitional services, meeting with management, making sure that those employees are aware of all labor resources, health insurance, things like that, that they may need during that transition. I was glad to be able to be there to share more information about what our county resources are through workforce development and making sure that all of those folks know about our Career Center free programs and services. We have already been seeing some of those Angio workers come into our Career Center. They are all getting severance and health insurance, but it varies by how long they've been employed there. So it's how long their severance and health insurance lasts. But we are making sure they have everything that they need. They will not be, at this point, not hosting an on-site job fair for those employees, but we do have community job fairs coming up and they can participate in those. We have a community job fair on February 19th in our building downtown in Glens Falls. You will start to see more promotions about that, thanks to Don Lehman. And we are also planning our annual school job fairs, which happen March and April with the high schools. And then in May, we'd like to focus on our 8th graders. It's their first job as they turn 14. And those are actually usually our most eager to work people is our 14-year-olds. And our GED class still it's our youth GED class, which goes up to age 24. We work with BOSI's on that. We still have 10 youth on our waiting list, but we just pulled 2 more in as we had somebody just graduate from our GED class, and we had 4 more students pass a section of their GED exam. There's 4 sections, and they have to pass each of them individually. And we're busy, but we're cranking. Just small but mighty team, 7 of us. I have had some staff transition. I had one retirement, her celebrations today after 9 years of county service. And then I had our fiscal coordinator took a job closer to home in Argyle. So I have a new fiscal coordinator. So it's been a very busy January with these transitions, but we get really excited about all of our spring workforce initiatives as it relates to helping hospitality tourism industry with starting to recruit for the summer. And making sure those young people especially not only know about the jobs, but have the job readiness skills to obtain and retain those jobs. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has about the state of our current workforce, but I will be giving a more in-depth presentation at this committee meeting next month.
I'm concerned of the 50 people from AngioDynamics, knowing our unemployment rate is 4.1%. What amount of open jobs do we have locally to help cover those 50 people?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I did want to mention that. I like to reassure those folks, and I did when I met with them, that we still have plenty of jobs here, right? And sometimes we got to turn off the news and where people are worried about the economics, because we have plenty of jobs here. So in the winter, we still usually have around 1,500 jobs available at any time. All businesses don't register those jobs with New York State Department of Labor. So if I only see, 800 listed with Department of Labor, I'm always adding a few hundred more, because you'll see signs on windows or just on their social media or their websites about their job openings, but they're not registered with the state. So I always assume there's a few hundred more. In the summer, we have around 3,000 jobs that we work to fill, and we don't have any say or operation with any international students. Our funding and our programs and services are for residents here. But we still want to make sure anybody who's contributing to our community and our economy knows about all the open jobs. So it varies, but generally between 500 and 1,500 in the winter, and between 2,000 and 3,000 jobs in the summer.
Will they be able to find comparable pay and benefits?
Yeah, and that's a good question. It depends on what they're looking for. We did hear that a few of them are going to retire. And then some people want a career change, some people want the same kind of job, right? So we do have other companies already willing to step up and help and interview those candidates. And so we're making sure that those businesses are connected with Department of Labor, who's doing those one-on-one meetings with those individuals.
Any other questions from the committee?
What type of jobs were they at NGO?
It runs the gamut. So some of them, it was manufacturing, others, might have been some more administrative or supportive jobs. But they do send us, Department of Labor sends us like the skill set of those 50 employees, and then we're able to think about the businesses that may be able to use those people. But it's really about what that person wants, right? Because some of those folks we met with were like, I want to try something different. So then we make sure they come into our career center and learn about the other opportunities available for them.
Any other questions? President Patchett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you get a lot of, I don't know, say like $75,000 to $125,000 jobs that are specific skill sets, or are the majority of these jobs that you're speaking of entry level?
There's a middle ground there between like higher level paying versus entry level. Most of our jobs are in the middle, in between there. But and you're right, we do have a lot of entry level jobs too, but we want people to think that entry level jobs are not bad, because a lot of times it's a great way to get your foot in the door. Particularly for healthcare jobs, there's a lot of lower paying entry level positions available all the time. So we're constantly working with healthcare organizations and the hospital, Hudson Headwaters, but it leads to so many other higher paying jobs, but you have to get that experience first. And that's why we want to make sure people are aware of the training programs with BOCES and SUNY Adirondack, as well as with our center, to make sure that they can market themselves to get those higher paying jobs. We all have to start somewhere. All of us did. But Gen Z, the younger generation, has higher demands for salaries and schedules and everything else. And on one hand, I commend them because they don't settle and they know what they want. And then on the other hand, it is a hard time for our businesses that are trying to make business needs get met. But we try to find the balance, and it really runs the gamut in terms of salaries. There aren't a lot of higher paying jobs, but right, that aren't filled. And when they're out there, they get filled quickly because there aren't as many.
Thank
Mhm.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Liza. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
We're gonna move over to the planning and community development agenda. Sarah and Ethan. Sarah alerted me that this morning that there's an opportunity for us. So Sarah, if you don't mind, gonna provide some insight to this opportunity and how we might be able to go forward and improve this.
Yes. So this did not make the agenda because we just received it yesterday afternoon. This is from the State Office of Information Technology Services. This is our the state's ortho imagery program. We have been participating in this program since it began in 2001. The state flies all of the counties and produces aerial imagery on a typically 4-year rotating basis. And the counties always have the opportunity to contribute funding to upgrade the resolution of that imagery, which we have always done. This is our 6th cycle through this. Our last flight was in 2022. On the plus side, unlike many programs, costs for this program are going down because technology is improving. So our costs are lower than they have been in the past. The cost to upgrade from the base 1-foot pixel resolution imagery that the state provides to 1/2-foot pixel, which is what we did in 2022. The cost for that is $32,000. We do not need to pay the state until February 1st, 2027, but we do need to provide them with a commitment letter and a resolution by March 6th. So I would just like to bring that for consideration to everybody.
Can't take action on this.
Fortunately, Sarah, it's not on the agenda, and I've been alerted that we can't take action on this. So
So
I'm-
what-
I'm gonna look to Amanda to say, what can we do?
Could you, for a resolution at the February 20th board meeting?
Okay.
Or you can refer it to finance.
Refer to finance? Okay, Sarah, would you, try to get this on the finance agenda
Sure.
and see if we can get this approved?
Yep.
What's the sense of, the committee in terms of doing a referral to finance to try to get this approved? Any objections there? All right, so it's, we don't need a motion for that, right? We just do it. Okay, so Sarah, good luck.
Yep,
Right,
thanks.
moving forward, it's department updates. I'm not
Great.
sure if Ethan wants to go first or Sarah, but I'll leave it up to them, so give us a sense.
So yeah, prepared a brief 10-slide PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if Amanda or Tammy are able to share that. Thank you. And so yeah, as they pull that up, I just want to just thank supervisors. At the last board meeting, there was a floor resolution supporting a grant application to the local government proficiency program for an EMS study. We'll be submitting an application for that on February 4th, but that application is going to be going towards meeting some unfunded state mandates to have a countywide plan to have a sustainable EMS service. It's going to be exploring all sorts of different options, and hopefully by going after this grant application, we can offset the costs of this unfunded mandate. Great, we got the presentation up. So today I'm going to do a fairly broad overview of what our department does, where we're at with some of our other initiatives, and what we're looking towards this year. During the February meeting, we're going to have our annual report finalized. We produce a 25-page document every year that sort of outlines in greater detail the nature of our projects and other programs that we've done. So yeah, let's get started here. So planning community development. I think I've seen all of you before in various capacities, but what we do as department, we make plans. We try to understand what the county's priorities are. We do that by listening to elected officials, the public. We produce these plans that gather data, summarize themes, and then identify strategies and priorities for our county. We do a lot of intermunicipal coordination. We're finding that's more and more important as staffing challenges persist across, particularly up county. And a lot of the issues that our region faces are shared among municipalities, whether it be housing, environmental quality, or simple infrastructure needs. And then the final bullet there, technical assistance and training. We've really put a lot more energy into this the past couple of years. We've relaunched a technical, more of a formal technical assistance effort for municipalities because we have more capacity in our department. We've also been doing more deliberate planning and zoning board member training, as well as training for local zoning enforcement, or zoning enforcement officers that actually do the business of development review in the communities. The next slide. One of the big items that's been guiding our department over the past year, and even previous to that, as we were in the process of drafting it, is Warren County 2040. This is our comprehensive plan that we adopted in June. Over the course, even before this plan was adopted in June, we've been using this plan to go pursue grant funding and identify projects that meet county needs. We heard from a lot of residents, we heard from a lot of elected officials, departments, and go after funding to meet those needs. A lot of what this plan does, especially with our grant work, and you'll see in a few slides how active we've been with grants, is the state right now has been putting out a lot of different funding sources, whether it be the Mother Nature Bond Act or, the governor released her budget yesterday. New programs need to be coming out every few months. We get to a point where we need to be making decisions about, what do we actually put our energies into, and having something like a comprehensive plan that helps us stay grounded is really important. The next slide. And so just a shout out to the importance of planning. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, whether it be a state budget or federal spending priorities. We anticipate that there's going to be, an increasing number of difficult decisions that we've got to make, or you all as elected officials need to make. Our role really is to help you guys make informed decisions, right? As you navigate challenging times. I mean, we're looking at municipal budgets and we're knowing that things are tightening up all the time. So recognizing that there's likely going to be challenges ahead, having something like whether it's your own locally adopted comprehensive plan or a county level plan, we can look towards sort of these guiding visions and goals and help that guide some of those decisions. Next slide. All right, and just a quick, glimpse into some of our active projects. The, planning and policy, infrastructure and capital projects, community and economic development, these things are all interrelated. As I said, the comprehensive plan continues to guide our work, our housing strategy, that municipal zoning and policy assistance. In the past, we've helped draft short-term rental regulations for municipalities. That had the dual benefit of both helping, shorter staff municipalities with our technical expertise, then also addressing some of the housing issues that we're seeing across the county. We have been dipping more into infrastructure and capital projects. So I think all the elected officials were pretty patient with our department over the last couple of years. You heard about the outdoor rec plan, the trail study, the comprehensive plan. Took a lot of staff time. We asked for a lot of attention on that stuff, but that is starting to yield results in terms of us going after funding for projects that implement that. The community and economic development side of things, again, interrelated with infrastructure and capital projects. Our Thriving Hamlets project, which we presented on previously, I encourage you to check out the website for that project. Our brownfield inventory, identifying vacant, unutilized properties across the county, and overall, project development and technical assistance. This is a really key step for some of our smaller municipalities in which, a project just doesn't happen overnight. There's a considerable amount of planning, design work, and then finally implementation. It's really like a 3-step thing. So oftentimes municipalities can be caught flat-footed, or even ourselves as a county flat-footed when, hey, this new funding thing arrives, but we haven't done those first 2 steps of the planning and design steps. So we do a lot of that work on the sidelines too. So this is just a trend line for what sort of funding that we have captured over the past, looks like 10 years here. In the past couple of years, we have sort of rebuilt our department. We have new professional staff. We have really good support staff. And I think I would say maybe 2 years ago, when we had gone under a lot of transitions, we had retirements and turnover. Everyone was sort of learning the ropes, and now we're really starting to hit our stride in terms of working together as a team. And that is reflected in our ability to go after grant funding, and it also shows the power of having those plans in place. And then for the next slide, this is just a glimpse. We just got some news about some other projects that were funded right at the start of this year, but overall, this is just it's a snapshot of where our grant funding is going towards. This represents, I think each one of these have direct correlations in plans that we recently completed. A lot of emphasis on the outdoor recreation economy strategic plan, a lot of infrastructure. And I will point out too, like one of the shifts as a department that we've done is that we've shifted away from, I wouldn't say we've shifted away, I would say we've expanded our breadth to include a countywide focus on things. We have a really successful First Wilderness Heritage Corridor initiative, which spent a lot of time in the western side of Warren County. But through the comprehensive plan, and you'll see in some of these grants, like we've taken a less just municipal specific approach and tried to look at what the county needs are and then achieve funding for those important county projects. So just last week, we got notice that our funding request to support culvert work with DPW was awarded. And that was really significant because, that tied together work that, Sarah had done with the Regional Planning Board and DPW with its culvert assessment inventory, a lot of energy into the planning. We used that information to support the request for funding for 2 culverts, and that resulted in over, I think, about $600,000 in funding, which would have otherwise just drawn down our $10 million culvert bond for. So it helps us do projects like that, where it's like, hey, this is a community need, it's outlined in our comprehensive plan. This is a nuts and bolts kind of project that we are trying to focus on too. That includes things like the fish hatchery, huge economic driver. We're getting capital funds to support that. And a lot of these things too are projects that we would have been spending money on anyways as a county, and we're finding ways to get the state and federal government to help out. The next slide. So again, this is just a look at some of the funding sources that are out there, and we're tracking these things at all times. Department of State, Environmental Conservation, Empire State Development, which has proven to be a really good partner in Warren County, and other various federal programs, whether it be the Basin Program, the Northern Borders Regional Commission, and the impact of going after these grants. These aren't just fun projects that we like doing, although I am a fisherman, so supporting the fish hatchery is it's a big plus. But for impact, we can reduce the local tax burden. We're advancing priority projects that the county's already identified. We're growing municipal capacity. Right now, we have a grant in, it's a technical assistance grant through the state, which will ideally take a lot of the work that Sarah's done with GIS, a lot of our work that we've done with our planning and zoning groups, and figuring out what their needs are to develop a streamlined online permitting program, which would be hugely time saving and take a load off a lot of the staff in our up-county municipalities. And also, it positions us for future funding rounds. Like right now, we're going after the local government efficiency grant for this EMS study. The plan is, at the state level, at least, we've heard from New York State Association of Counties, is that all this mandated planning for county EMS is queuing us up for future rounds of funding for the state to support emergency services. So this is, again, just the importance of this planning. So for the next slide, Supervisor Wild asked us, hey, be honest about the challenges you guys are facing. I said, hey, that's probably a pretty good idea. We don't want to say we can do everything all the time. So some of the things that we manage as a department, it's increasing demand for planning and grant support. As the state releases more funding, everyone says, hey, we want to take advantage of this, whether it's a municipal playground or a park or something like that. We take the time to work with people and look over those opportunities, because most people don't have planners on staff. That goes back to limited staff capacity on our own end. We can only do so much with the staff that we have, but as we've developed, we're doing more. Down to an individual, everyone has improved their performance over the past couple of years, so it's been great. As we get more of these grants, there's just more compliance and administration associated with them. It's a lot of paperwork. You see us a lot at committee asking for whether it's a resolution to authorize it, capital project setups, transfers, memorandums of agreement, going through RFPs to solicit consultants. That's a lot of administrative work. And on top of the county requirements, also the requirements of the state and federal agencies that we deal with. And then technology updates, not to gloss over those other points, but technology updates. And Sarah can speak to this a bit, how this is impacting her work with the GIS field department.
Yeah, we have 2 major challenges that we're kind of dealing with simultaneously on the GIS front. One is just some fairly substantial changes in technology with Esri, the GIS software that we use, their platform, undergoing some major changes, retirement of a lot of the software that we've developed our products on in the past that is needing to be transitioned to a new platform that comes with a steep learning curve. So we're in the midst of that right now. And then secondly, accessibility. We're putting a lot of time, effort, and focus on making sure that all of our many public-facing applications, maps are compliant with the accessibility requirements as of April 1st of this year. So that's taking a good chunk of our time. I do think that the end result will be better design and interfaces for everybody using these applications. We're hoping also to add some additional functionality as we go through this process, but it's definitely taking a lot of our staff time that we might otherwise be spending on project work.
And another bullet up there, just to note, was, you know, local match constraints. A lot of, you know, we do periodically, we try to be as frugal as possible with identifying sources of local matches, whether it be in-kind services or projects that are already funded, and we just tack on extra state and federal support. We do, and we will be coming back in front of the committee asking for matching funds for some of the programs that we're chasing after. So I just want to, I'm not asking today, but I just want to let you know in the future, we'll be asking for that. But I will say, I feel a lot more confident now coming to this group and coming to the Board of Supervisors, asking for matching funds for projects, knowing that we are, you know, carrying out our comprehensive plan and knowing that we are addressing community priorities. It makes me feel far more comfortable asking you all for, hey, can you support this effort? These aren't novel ideas that we're talking about supporting. In any case, we'll have further discussions on that. And then for the last slide, looking ahead, you know, continued implementation. We're really focusing on implementation, not just planning right now. So a lot of the plans were, you know, concepts, designs. You know, Supervisor B, I think during the ARPA conversations, we had allocated a modest amount of $15,000 to support the fish hatchery. That in turn, we worked with landscape architects and, you know, Jeff Ingley and Dean Moore, and then that resulted in a master plan, which resulted in $250,000 of federal funding, right? And that's the whole, you know, that's the whole idea of the concept to fundable project. And then, you know, ongoing coordination with municipalities and partners. You know, we have been involved with comprehensive plans with our municipalities. And like I said before, we're aware of staffing struggles. I think there's also, you know, continuity issues where it's like, hey, if we get a new board, right? A town board, a new planning board, a new zoning board, and staff retirements and turnovers, it's hard to have some continuity. And we'd like to have an ongoing dialogue with our municipality so we understand what your needs are. So if there's a big turnover or something, at least you've got maybe someone watching the ball on longer range projects that can help out. Especially, I mean, this is particularly important with a lot of these infrastructure projects. But, you know, next month we'll have a more detailed annual report. I'll try to keep it short, get it to you in advance so you can look through it. And before I yield the floor here, I just want to mention Supervisor Wild had mentioned this at the Board of Supervisors meeting, the County Infrastructure Grant Program. Last year was the first year of it. They offer up, Empire State Development offers up to $1 million to support projects that support housing. And then up to $500,000 for projects that have a broader economic development impact, but not necessarily housing related. So, you know, last year was for North Creek Sewer District. It was a shovel-ready project, so it was pretty easy to apply the funds there. This year, we are also soliciting projects from municipalities. It's 50% match, so it does favor, you know, something that's already got some funding lined up, something that's not just, hey, we want to do this now. It's got to be pretty real. So I'm having conversations, you know, you know, Supervisor Niles, you know, they're doing a water district rehab, see where that works. I know the town of Queensbury is working on Jenkinsville, reaching out to Jeremy Schneebel at City of Glens Falls to see what his needs are at the city level. we're an open door, so we are looking for projects, reached out to Jim and Chuck to see if they've got other, housing developers that are looking for a little extra boost. So we are, our ears are open, give us a call. I've got a one pager on the program, same as last year. Just hand this out now. So that's one of those things we're working right now. Is there anything in particular, just sort of from this broad overview of our department that supervisors that any further detail or questions, comments?
Any questions from the committee? I have one, and our budget officer just happened to join us at the end. With the match,
Yeah,
Ethan, is it possible for you to put together an anticipated match so that the budget officer can see it and give us a sense about what our likelihood is to be able to cover those matches? We'll do that. So you guys are great. I look at this growth in the, the grants that we're getting,
yeah,
right? I'd love to see it go up again this year. But match is always an issue,
Yeah.
especially with our budget issues that we anticipate having this year.
yeah, thank you. And I think, approximately right now, probably around $300,000 would be, a collective amount of matching funds that we'll be applying towards. So
Okay.
that comes from various sources, and that, that's sort of an off the cuff number, but that's going to change based on project partners and what we can do for in-kind contributions.
Thank you. That's good. And I'm looking at our new budget officer who has the same kind of expression that the prior budget officer had. Just a blank
Yeah.
look.
Good poker face.
Any other questions? Supervisor Patchett?
Not much question, but just talking about Ethan's presentation, I noted that he was talking about limited staff capacity, and I could just talk about the town of Hague. The Warren County Planning Department just got the town of Hague nearly $300,000 in grant funding for our salt shed #1 and 2, a Delta study. And we often talk about ROI, and we've got a $8 million occupancy tax fund that we divvy out. When I think from an ROI perspective, this is something that's measurable. Like if we give Ethan 2 extra professionals, staff, grant writers, I don't know what that would cost, but I have an idea. What would we get back for that? I don't know how much time that took Sarah and Ethan to write those 2 grants, but the town of Hague just got $300,000 for it. And to me, like, that's something measurable, tangible, that like we should really take under consideration. It just kind of makes sense to me. Granted, we've had not actually with the planning department, but we've applied for grants, and it's always disappointing when we don't get them. But in the same sense, we kind of had a little bit of a windfall this year. We got our $90,000 LWRP grant that Tracy Clothier wrote for us. We've got the salt shed and the Delta study. We got a $50,000 sewer district study for the town of Hague, and we didn't spend a lot to get that money. And I'm just draw the picture that something that we should really consider when we're spending a lot of, it doesn't necessarily have to come from occupancy tax, but that's one area that would actually make sense to people when they saw, all right, well, we're spending $150,000 in salaries and then probably some more money in benefits, but it's probably yielding millions, potentially. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
Maybe we can request a 10% kickback from the towns when we get you a nice grant.
Chair, if I could, a kickback may not be the way to go. But a way to go would be maybe further discussions with the department about an intermunicipal agreement that would cover county costs.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments?
Just to comment, I want to thank the office. It doesn't show up on here, but I guess we applied directly. Lake George, town of Lake George got 2.5 million for the 400 unit housing project. So that was approved recently. I know you helped out quite a bit on that, so thank you.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
It's a great project.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much. Moving forward, discussion update. I've invited Jim Siplin from Warren County Economic Development Corporation. With him is Mr. Robert Bullock. He's with Sudi Adirondack and Startup 80K. So without any kind of concerns, I'd like to have both of them come to the table and address the committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. I sent some charts. Are you able to pull those up? Okay. And anybody who wants a paper copy, we've got paper copies here. We'll go through these charts relatively quickly, and then there's some new news that I'd like to provide to you. So we track all our business activity, which is a combination of new business opportunities, as well as a support of existing businesses that are looking to expand. You can see this slight drop between December and January. When we actually put this chart together a week ago to make sure that we met the deadline for getting it out to you, we call anything that hasn't had activity in 12 months. So we dropped that number from 79 to 77. Subsequent to that, 3 additional business opportunities walked in our door. So the number is actually 80. And you'll see that this is a relatively slow climb that is moving uninterrupted over more than a calendar year. What this means is that we have more demand every single month for businesses either looking to develop here or existing businesses to grow. There's more detail on the next chart, the pie chart, about what sector those are in, where they are, whether they're new or existing. Roughly 80%, not quite 80%, are in Glens Falls and Queensbury, which is commensurate with where the population is. But we work hard to try to develop, at least our goal is to try to have this be more like a third, a third, a third. But there is significant work going on in the outer county beyond Glens Falls and Queensbury. Important to understand that the majority of our work is to support existing businesses. The growth that we see, and Liza talked about the number of jobs, there's never, in the time I've been here, there's never been a time there's been less than 1,200 jobs posted at the employment group. I would say the majority of those are in the tourism sector, but not all. We were at 2 manufacturers in Glens Falls over the last several weeks. Both of them have double-digit number of openings now. Typically, those are skilled positions. They're not just looking for somebody to come in and work for them to do whatever it is. They're looking for somebody who has the appropriate skills. But there is essentially flatness in our manufacturing workforce. As we lost over the last 2 years, what we lost at Angio was more than compensated by the growth of the existing employers as they're continuing to grow their operations. So that sector continues to be about 10 to 12% of both our workforce and our economy. The majority of those jobs and the majority of the economic growth is in the tourism sector and the healthcare sector. Between the two of those, they make up more than 2/3 of our economy. And Liza knows all of this. We work closely with her every day. Interesting about the Angio people in particular, roughly 50 that were affected by this action. They've known this for more than a year. They were notified more than a year ago. This is just the back end of when they were actually released. One of the things Angio had to do was actually provide them with back end incentives to stay, because there were opportunities for many of them to move, whether it was with others in the Medline or BD world of medical devices, or whether it was other manufacturers. If somebody is looking to stay in these fields, we have places for them to go. But we're also trying to figure out where is that ball going in the long term, because the manufacturing sector continues to stay flat. Holding it at flat actually is better than most of our peers, but the growth is occurring in other spheres. I have a chart in here that talks about some real big dollars that have come in the last year. I think sometimes we lose track of this. In fact, I lost track of this. I didn't even realize how big the amount of net new investment that occurred in the calendar year of 2025 was. Downtown Glens Falls is well understood. The downtown DRI by itself, the initial $10 million, was the city has gone through the process of explaining to people that more than $47 million was ultimately developed just in the South Street corridor alone. If you move past that to housing developments that are beyond that, or businesses that have expanded in the greater part of Glens Falls, the total rises to nearly $100 million, with more that has been pledged but is still in the works. In the village of Lake George, we did some analysis of the expansion primarily of tourist assets, but of other assets as well. We're seeing dramatic growth and commitment. A lot of this is property value in Lake George when acquisitions move from one property to another, but there is significant growth, which follows the DRI award that you had. If you look at North Creek, where I spent an inordinate amount of time, because we, along with others, helped advocate for the successful deployment of a wastewater system there that was hobbling their ability to really do anything, whether it was to expand existing properties or to take on new ones. Once that sewer went into construction last year, $8 million, nearly $40 million has been pledged. More than $25 million has been spent in North Creek in the last year. North Creek is one of the smallest communities in Warren County. What is this telling us? If you look at the investment that occurred in Glens Falls, that's occurring in Lake George and is now occurring in North Creek, this investment follows infrastructure. And we need to be targeted about our infrastructure. We work closely with the planning department, and Ethan probably more closely than our two organizations have worked together in the time I've lived here. And that's because the two of us are essentially two pieces of this puzzle. We help identify both the opportunity and help realize the return. They help us secure both the studies that lead to the infrastructure investments and the funds that back them. There was a lot of question last year about how we fund the North Creek sewer. I saw many of you on the floor of the Board of Supervisors meeting advocating for a fairly unique deployment of octacs into that. Still not 100% consensus about whether that was the good news or the right thing to do. But I can tell you that what has happened since then is clearly a return. If you're looking for return on your money, you're seeing the return. The Copperfield Hotel is being redeveloped now. It's being redeveloped in a combination with funds not only from the county that came through the infrastructure of the wastewater system, but through the LDC, which provided working capital for them to be able to do it. All the elements that you have at your disposal are in motion and they're delivering value. We haven't even talked about the $200 million that is sitting on the table to be developed at West Mountain, which is itself a multi-year project that is in the process of, seeking its full planning board approval. But $200 million added to what I'm talking about puts this county, this area, in the top handful of places in the state of New York, regardless of size, in terms of net new investment in the past year. We're on the same list as places in Long Island, Buffalo. We're bigger than some communities that are many times our size. But this follows structured strategy and an infrastructure investment. And I wanted to make sure that you didn't wonder whether or not these decisions that you're making are delivering value. We've talked about grants. Ethan talked about grants. We also are trying to secure grants as a way of diversifying the funding around the EDC so that the municipalities are not the sole source, together with our membership, of funding the organization. There are 4 that are in play right now at the EDC. The first is a grant that we're working on with the Connect All office, that's the old broadband office, to expand cellular. Now they can expand it 2 ways, either coverage or capacity. Coverage is a very difficult nut to crack. We compete with areas that don't really have the density to be able to attract those kind of investments, but capacity was something that they were willing to fund here. So we have a $2 million effort underway with Lake George, with the city of Glens Falls, and with the county to be able to provide targeted expansion of cellular capacity. And if this grant, and it's a experimental grant, if it's successful, our goal is to try to then redeploy that in subsequent iterations of it to expand into coverage as well. The whole reason this came was that the broadband office came to us and said, you as a county have been more successful at deploying new broadband technology than virtually any your size in the state. We think you would be a good target for this. Would you consider it? This is so different than the way it used to work before. We used to have to try to find a grant and then we'd have to go try to fight for the grant. Instead, what's happening is the grant providers come to us because they believe this is a place where it would both work and deliver value. I think that's important to understand. The work that's gone on here in broadband is delivering and continues to deliver for our area. We have a childcare grant going on here, which was really weird. It came up in the last few months, but the Rockefeller Family Fund is looking to partner with the Adirondack Foundation to develop novel approaches to develop childcare in the Adirondack Park. We represent an interesting player in all of this. 92% of Warren County is in the boundary of the park, but we also have areas that are outside of it, which gives us unique opportunity to have a step in each place. That means we could find resources to work on this that are not living in the park, but who are close to the park. And so we were asked to participate so that we could both bring the voice of business and we could also be the place where the person that would actually do the work that would be hired with these grant funds will work out of the EDC office in our direction. The reason for it is it's much more likely that we're going to find the qualified candidate to do that work here than in the heart of the park. So our unique position here is one that led to us being able to be sought out to participate in that particular grant. The Power Up grant, which is on the next page, is similar. The Empire State Development came to us and they said, we have funds available to expand power capacity, including diversity. And there's an area in your arena which we believe is ripe for that. And that's the riverfront in Glens Falls that runs essentially from Finch Prine on down to the line with Queensbury. So they came to us and said, is this something that you would be willing to entertain because we believe it would deliver value to the proper use of that land so that it can continue to be successful economically, not only for your region, but for the state? And so we said, okay, I guess we will. So now we're in the process of working with National Grid, who would actually do the work. We would be the grant administrator and recipient for several $1,000,000. It's somewhere between $5 and $6 million likely to add a secondary high capacity power feed into that corridor. Again, the reason that this opportunity came is not only because we have the need, but because we are demonstrating as an area a place of growth. Last week, the Empire State Development came and said, we've heard a lot of discussion about this idea of a freshwater center, and we think we would like to partner with you on a study to better define that so that it could be sought as a source of funding in subsequent budgets. So they said, would you be willing to engage in a study where we would pay half of it and you could figure out on your side how you would pay the other half, maybe somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 to do the study. And again, the reason this came to us is because of what they were reading and seeing about the things we were already working on. How is this all happening? It's happening because of the strategy on the next page. We have a 3-tiered strategy about our economy. It's because we've come to understand it. Back to the days when Ryan was leading here, he worked with me over 2 years to pour over literally more than 100 years worth of data to understand where has economic value been received in this place historically and where is it going to continue to be recognized. For as long as this place has been a place, at least 1 out of 3 and sometimes more dollars come from people who do not live here. Those that, Vinny, you understand this well, you live in the space. We have always depended on people who are not here to spend some of their money here. It continues to be true. North of us, it's more like 1 out of $2. But in all of the park, it is the dominant source of our first pillar of the economy. We can look to try to strengthen it, certainly to make it year-round, certainly to try to increase its profitability to both employees and participants in it. But for more than 200 years, it has been the first pillar of our economy. Most places would kill to have it. If you do not have a tourism industry, you would desperately love to have a tourism industry. For us, we've got to figure out how to not only invest in it strategically, but how to make it better. It cannot be replaced by AI. It cannot be automated. It will continue to be something that people have to be here in order to experience and therefore to spend money. The second piece of our economy has always been an organization that has at least some component of their funding coming from the public. The county itself is an entity. SUNY Adirondack is an entity. Any municipality is an entity. Any school district is an entity. But the biggest ones are our healthcare institutions. Glens Falls Hospital and Hudson Headwaters together represent more than 4,000 employees. The two of them together, 4,000 employees. That's 1/4 of our workforce in those two places. Those places will continue to be under demand because there is no hospital, there is no facility like Glens Falls Hospital north of here. You can go all the way to the border. You can go to Plattsburgh. It's not as big a hospital as the one here. You can even go across the lake to Burlington's hospital. It is not as big as the one here. This facility will continue to be the receiver of healthcare needs of a aging population in the park. Do we think the demography is going to change dramatically in the park? Its median age is over 50 now. Will demand for healthcare diminish? It won't. So we have two pillars of our economy that are very, very strong. They've been there for a long period of time. They promise to be here for the indefinite future. What do we do with that last third? Well, there's a lot of things. Manufacturing sits in there. Legacy, large-scale employers sit in there. But also emerging areas like micro businesses or entrepreneurial businesses around topics like natural resource protection. We talk about some of these things in the bullets here, but the last page in this presentation talks about part of why this is all happening. And that's because we've been delivering this message to a wide audience for a fair amount of time. And just in the last few months, I've listed some of the places where we've gone and introduced ourselves to a much wider audience than just the residents here of Warren County. We had the power breakfast here from the Albany Business Review. It brought more than 150 business people from outside of Warren County into Warren County to talk about the opportunities that are going on here. We presented together with some of the new businesses and new entities in North Creek, we presented a forum to the residents of North Creek in November talking about the investment so they could see who are behind these numbers. What are they talking about in terms of actual projects? And I think that community is starting to recognize that this is delivering the value that they weren't sure it was going to deliver. At our own luncheon, we had nearly 250 people here to talk about all of this. Again, a big swath of that came from outside of Warren County. There was a recent documentary by Spectrum News about the future of the park. If you haven't seen it, I would really encourage you to see it. It's on Spectrum News's website. It's called something about a unicorn and the future of the Adirondack Park. This came to be because Susan Arbetter, who leads their news division and who has been a reporter on politics in New York for more than 25 years, she came to our office and said, we think you are the first stop on talking about what it will take to make the Adirondack Park work for the next 50 years. Think about that. Of all the people they could have come and talked to, they started with us. And they said, would you be willing to talk on camera? And I did for 2 hours. And I was terrified of what might show up in that documentary. But it turned out pretty good because I said some things that were hard. Like we can't keep doing stuff the way we've been doing it. Infrastructure dollars cannot continue to be allocated the way they are today. Any community in the park suffers. Doesn't matter whether you're Lake George or you're North Creek or you're Bolton or anybody who's trying to look at infrastructure. If you have less than a few thousand people and you're trying to engage in a project that's measured in millions and millions of dollars, it is daunting. We need to develop a different approach for how money is allocated in the park versus how it's allocated outside the park. And the reason for that is not just because we want to give everyone wastewater, it's because it can't be the park unless we protect it. And the fundamentalist greatest risk to it is its water and its wastewater. We know that. How we spend all our time talking about septic systems, runoff, salt. We know these issues. We've got to get other people to understand these issues so that we can get even more investment made in these communities. And we made that case and somebody brought it to an audience for 45 minutes. Betty was in that. Gary Douglas from the North Country Chamber was in it for their government. Pataki was in it. Like Dan Steck's in it. There's a who's who of people in North Country are in it. But what was most important is that they see the nexus for not only where strategy, but where success is being right here on the edge of the park, where we have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, where this place has always been the cornerstone of both. We've carved out a place for ourselves. And so then thinking this, I'm kind of feeling, somewhat smug. I wrote a piece about something that has just come out in the last few weeks. Share some of these with you guys. It's in the Glens Falls Business Journal. We're on the front page, which is very nice. I'm not sure, normally they ask for an economic outlook every year and they put us on page 8 and I'm right next to like Chuck Barton and 4 other people. But this year they put us right on the front page. Why did they put us on the front page? Because earlier, just literally a few weeks ago, a study was released by an organization called Area Development. It's a magazine that works in the economic development world of the United States. It's for large scale site selectors to determine where they should move their businesses. They had a separate group do the economic analysis, and they looked at every MSA in the country and beyond the MSAs, they looked at every market that is reporting data to the Department of Labor, more than 900 of them. And they analyzed those using a fairly rigid methodology, which I have lots of details on here. And they came up with metrics for things like economic strength, workforce, job growth. There's like 7 different categories. Here's a stunning thing. In all the places in the United States, starting with the largest MSA, which is the New York City MSA with more than 11 million people, all the way down to the smallest entity, which is Pecos, Texas, literally 10,000 people. In all of those places, we are the 177th largest in terms of its performance of its economy. It goes on to then, I can show you all of the data, but in New York, we are number 2. Not in terms of the top line number. Obviously, many areas produce more than we do, but on a per capita basis, on the strength of our economy, we are literally the second best economy in the state of New York. We have got to stop looking down at our shoes. We are winning this battle that you fight every day. And I watch with admiration for what you do. We are winning it. That doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that all the problems are gone, but it does mean by objective data that right now the strategy of investing in perfecting what we have and adding what we should is delivering value today. You can look at it in terms of the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of development that is ongoing. You could just walk down South Street in Glens Falls and you could see it. I saw you the other day, Mayor, and I told you that I know where that started. I was there when you and your administration were the one that put that grant application in with Ed's support. You know what's happened since then is we stayed on it. Ed unfortunately passed away. Someone new had to come in and take the baton from him. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't walk away from that very difficult thing when we didn't know how to do it. We weren't even sure we wanted to keep doing it during COVID, but we stayed on it. That $10 million has turned into $50 million. It's turned into the picture that the state of New York puts up when they show people what is possible with this kind of investment. It's how they attract other people to even apply for the award, is they come to downtown Glens Falls. It's hard sometimes when you're in it every day to take a step back and realize we weren't here 10 years ago. Some parts of our place were performing well, but not all of it was. Now we're still struggling with one important thing, and those are the numbers you see in red. We are in the bottom half of those MSAs in terms of workforce numbers. That's really a function of 2 things. The size of our workforce, which we struggle with. How do we bring more people here? We need housing to be able to do it. Also the age of our workforce. Median age is 50. Of those people that Angio just let go, the median age is north of 50. This is a challenge for us. We've got to figure out how to both grow and broaden our workforce, because if we can, we already have a high-performing economy that, as Liza tells you, has more than 1,000 open jobs today. If we could figure out a way to both take, the things that we're doing and make maximum value out of it, but also build enough housing stock and enough appropriate community development to receive the number of people that were once here at the time that the park was formed. Imagine if North Creek was simply the size that it was at the day that the park was formed. It would have twice as many people in it as it does today. It wouldn't require anything in the way of expanding beyond its current hamlet. It would just require us to repopulate it. May require some housing development in the hamlet, but we have the infrastructure to support it now. We have the ability to even do better than we're doing now, but we're doing pretty well now. And I got lots more detail on this. I gave you 1 page so you could kind of get the highlights. It's like 40 pages long, the study. The methodology itself is 5 pages long. So we can go through this in any amount of detail you want. But if anybody tells you that we're not succeeding here, we're succeeding. The work that you put in, I've been coming to these committee meetings now for more than 5 years. The work you put in, you don't have to wonder about whether or not it's delivering value. When you go home tonight, you just look at these numbers. There's hundreds of communities across the United States that would like to be us. Doesn't mean we're done. Doesn't mean we're satisfied. Just means we should feel like the work we're doing is worthy.
Questions, comments for Jim? I'm surprised. What is it, lunchtime? But one of the things, we have some new committee meetings, members here. But I was here when I was here in this chair. When Ed Bartholomew was here to help us. I was here sadly when he passed away. One of the things that I brought up when I was asked to help us move through COVID was to kind of figure that out, but also at the same time, figure out how we can address the county as a whole for economic development. And that's one of the things that I kind of put on Jim's shoulders right away. Jim, it's not just Glens Falls, it's the county as a whole. And I've been with Jim since the 5 years. I've seen it. I've seen we moved the needle. We've had some successes, had some, I don't know if we call them failures, but we've had some disappointments. But we're definitely moving, in my mind, the right direction. And I encourage any members of this committee to get with us and spend some time and dig into really all the different pieces that are going on, because I'm sure Jim could go on for another hour. But those
You did ask me
options are
for,
available.
you asked me for broadband in that very first meeting, which isn't necessarily where I wanted to start. But since that point, we've not only added thousands of people, not done, but thousands of people in Warren County to the broadband rolls. But this year, you will see more than 2,000 homes have a competitive offering of fiber to their curb in Glens Falls, in Queensbury, and in Lake George initially. But all of that has occurred without the county having to commit any significant funds to the deployment or construction of network. That's an example of how that kind of development is feeding what you see here.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions? Bob, welcome. Any comments for us today?
Well,
I don't-
thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it very, very brief. For those of you, this is my second time presenting before the committee. For those of you who didn't see me before, I'm a member of the adjunct business faculty over at SUNY Adirondack. And I came to the college about 4 years ago. I've grown up in this region. I've worked throughout the state. I've headed up 2 economic development related organizations, the Rockefeller Institute of Government, part of SUNY, where I was deputy director, and also I was in charge of economic development policy for North Star Bank before it was acquired by Fleet and then subsequently acquired by Bank of America. I have throughout my career used my background in strategic communications to try to identify things that were important to me and evolving in an exciting way. When I took over Startup ADK, which is our entrepreneurial education program, working in conjunction with the LDCs for Warren and Washington County, Jim and I first became acquainted. I think the passion and the vision that you just heard in his presentation is the reason that I'm here today. We have a fantastic story to tell. I have a lot of experience in telling those stories, and I'm very, very grateful to Jim and all of you who have embraced me coming on a part-time basis, working with the Warren County Economic Development and Local Development Corporations, because the best is yet to come. We saw the enthusiasm in the annual meeting, particularly when we talked about the Freshwater Institute and the potential there. But that's just part of our story. The story is growing. And the interesting thing is the things that we're doing here in Warren County, other people from within the blue line and outside the blue line are starting to take a look, and they're making note of our activity. We truly are ready to step into the leadership position at a much, much higher level. And I'm looking forward to being part of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Bob. And Bob has also been involved with this Startup ADK, but he works with part of our population is within the jails, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I run on the prison education coordinator for our degree program over at Washington, a correctional facility, but also started working with Sheriff Jim LaFar, created a program called the Business of Life that really, in fact, I'll have a session later on today, that gives folks who are presently incarcerated, most of whom are from Warren, Washington County, an opportunity to envision a possibility outside of their present circumstance. And in fact, actually, Liza will be coming over on Friday to make a presentation on the Career Center, and the resources available. And, these are folks who have a long time been forgotten. And yet at the same time, and Jim was there when we graduated our first cohort of young women. There are folks here who are in a position to kind of step in and become part of what we're so excited about. And so thank you for recognizing that. I'm proud of how these people are trying to turn themselves around, because they truly are, and I see great potential, particularly with so many open positions.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Mr.
I
Chairman.
just, one other comment from me. I was at the Economic Development Corporation's board meeting. I've been on the board for a few years. And there was a discussion that's basically a fallout for our financial issues with ACH payments and the like. And what I thought was interesting is that, we may be a poster child, but that poster child is providing some benefits across not only our region, but our state and locally here. There was a lot of discussion about controls and what has to be done. And all these businesses are talking about it. So through our misfortune, we're helping, I believe, secure a bunch of other businesses and industries and financial communities throughout Warren County and beyond. And I think there's, we can kind of gain a little, attaboy for that, even though it was our misfortune to have this problem. So is there anything else? Vinny?
I just want to thank you, Jim, for all your efforts in all of this and for the last 5 years or so. And of course, I agree with that sentence you said of if you don't have the tourist economy, you wish you did. And we got to lean into that for the whole region, not just Lake George is a face of it, but it's got to go right throughout the region. It's a great industry. It's here, and I hope we do that. The Freshwater Institute, I know it next steps, but is there a pathway to funding for it, or is where we at with that? And is there any, this is an update, but is there any more of an update? And
Well, we're working with the LGA. In fact, while I was sitting here, they called. We're looking at whether we would partner with just them, whether we would include RPI and the Darren Freshwater Institute in that. But the study that I talked about is going to be done by some combination of those players. And there's already an advisory body to feed that, which includes the leaders of those organizations and some others. So it's simply a matter of where do we point that. The budget process is probably next year's budget process that we would seek. And then this year would be spent trying to develop the format for the ask. And that's
Okay.
what that study would do.
Okay, it's got to be close to, I'm not just whipping numbers out, but it's got to be close to $100 million project.
Well, it could be done at less than that. And there's a whole spectrum of choice that will have to be looked at.
Okay,
But we're looking at it to have at least several key components. One is the tourism facing educational component, another is a scientific component, and a third is a business development and incubation component. Any combination of those things would deliver value. We want to get the right combination.
very good, thank you.
Well, it's interesting you say that. They haven't been typically, but I'd like them to be. And I talked with some of their leadership this morning about that. So there's a possibility that we could. And I think it would help with the state if we did it that way.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so I have to apologize to the committee and the public who've been watching this long meeting. This was because I was involved with personnel for so many years. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Niles, thank you. Seconded by